The topic, the purpose of meditation, is here to clarify and remind us of what is meditation. And when we do a meditation workshop, it is the question that is asked, why do you want to meditate? But that, of course, leads us to another question, and that is, what is the purpose of life itself? Why should we exist? One thing we know for sure is that we exist. We can question everything else, but not that. Whether we exist or not, most people take for granted whether we exist. The whole idea of feeling this existence, this fact of individual being, shows us, demonstrates for us a kind of infinite dimension, if you will. And if we have a purpose, there cannot be your purpose, my purpose. We all have individual purposes, of course. On a short-term basis, we all have a purpose. A student's purpose may be to pass an exam. Another person's purpose may be to do well at the work. Another person's purpose might be to buy a house, something like that. So we all have these temporary purposes. But there's one enduring purpose. And if we are all centralized on this purpose, we can call it really the realization of what this existence means. And the greatest tool that we have in our arsenal is the instrumentation of the body and mind together. And so the body and mind, therefore, can be construed as a combined instrument that helps us attain our purpose. Now, what has meditation to do with it? So some people today say, oh, I meditate. Many people say, I meditate. My response is, that's very good. But then I'm a little wary because I know that there are many, many people who are meditating and not knowing how to do it, what to do, why they're doing it. So we get some responses, peace of mind. And if we regard meditation as a kind of deeper kind of prayer, there may be a prayer that wants to get wealth. There may be a reason to do meditation for that, or to get bodily health, or to get some other thing. And so we have to make sure that we fully understand what is meditation. And to help us along, I have the much quoted Art of Meditation by Joel Goldsmith in front of me. There's a whole chapter called The Purpose. So I'll be reading a little bit and commenting. He starts off, the purpose of meditation is to attain divine grace. I'll pause there and try to expand on that. What do we mean? What is grace? It's a kind of indefinable thing, but we know it's there because it comes out, it manifests itself as life. And we begin our spiritual journey, really our practice, by identifying the flowing grace that we find expressed as living things. If we see one leaf, we should see the entire totality of existence in this one leaf. If we see it in every face, there are 8 billion people on the planet, then so we have 8 billion, more than 8 billion faces going on, and that's just the human faces. Why should we see that they're all individual, they're all shining, the light is inside? You know, there's an expression, somebody who has a blank look, lights on but nobody at home. But when you see the eyes alert, then you know that there is something within them, some life principle that's in them, shining out from inside outward. And all of that comes under this title, grace, a kind of thing like a flowing river. One thing that we know about ancient Vedic religion, which we now today call Hinduism, is that praying by a river or being by a river or engaging with water itself is as good as going to a temple. That is why all the holy places are all by rivers. Of course, there's a practical reason why humans live by rivers, because water is life. But deeper than the practical thing is If water is life, and life is there at a deepest level, then the whole of life really is to be honored, and its source has to be explored. And the exploration of this is really meditation. So there's a purpose to meditation. It's not to get peace. You should get peace before you meditate, as I say very frequently. Why do you want to meditate? To get peace. No, go somewhere else and get it. Because actually, you should get that before you come for meditation. You have to do that by controlling the senses. What does that mean? It means that in order for us to tune our attention into divine grace, we have to take off a number of obstacles. We have to make sure that we don't think this world is all there is. And yet, we have to acknowledge the world in all its complexities, in all its beauty, in all its good, in all its evil also, in its ups and its downs, in its pleasures and its pains. We have to acknowledge the whole thing, really, as being a kind of fragmented version of this one divinity which is there, which we call life, the source of life. So the purpose of meditation is to attain divine grace, but then we have to make an adjustment to it, because divine grace is always there, always flowing. Without it, meditation itself is not possible. The thought current that is being employed itself is flow of grace. My speech that I'm giving through the vocal cords, coordinated with the neurons in the brain, some hand movements are there expressing some points, all of that, the facial expressions, hopefully they're okay. All of that really is divine grace expressed. That means wherever we look, if we have an eye for it, we will see divine grace always flowing, and it flows in movement, and it flows through time, and it flows through space, and it flows even beyond that. So when we say to attain divine grace, what we mean is to acknowledge that currently it doesn't feel present to us. Then what will we do? We'll make it present to us by tuning our attention progressively more and more, and doing it more and more internally, more and more subtly. Once this grace has been attained in a measure, it takes over our experience and lives our life, performs those things which are given us to do, and makes the crooked places straight. We no longer live by bread alone, but by this inner grace, this very profound. So everybody wants something, but the precondition for meditation is we have to get away with desires, do away with desires. This is the famous story in the Chandogya Upanishad. And that is that the Lord, Prajapati, it's just a story, Lord of all creatures, obviously a knower of the profound truth. And of course, the purpose of the Upanishads themselves is to teach a person their real nature and also the way to know it. And the Upanishads don't beat around the bush. They tell us directly. What do they say? They say that you are what you are seeking. You are that. So a person is what his core is. And the Upanishads say that man's core is divine. And the knowledge of this core, which we call the self, Atman, or Purusha, that is the purpose of human life. It's not the purpose of human life to address all the other things, peripheral things around that. That is what we call, in this description that Joel Goldsmith is giving, living by bread alone. Bread is important, no doubt, but by bread alone, no. So, not only is a person's core divine, but the whole creation is in essence divine. I repeat, the whole of creation is in essence divine. Swami Vivekananda, the modern Rishi, we may say, he says, we believe that every being is divine, is God. This is stated up front. It is not that we should sit and worship something. That is, no doubt, the best way for this modern age. But we have to understand behind it is this very valuable principle as an ultimate tool, as an ultimate in the background understanding. And then, feeling we are embodied, then we say, okay, please agree to appear as my most beautiful, my most favorite, my most beloved form, so that I can worship you. Anyway, Swami Vivekananda expands on this. He says the whole universe is one. There is only one self in the universe, only one existence. That one existence, when it passes through forms of time, space, causation, is called by different names. I'll even add to that. The mind itself makes the difference. It is the mind itself that has to be converted. The mind is a fragmenter. It is designed to take the raw material and split it up, as it were, into things, forms, sounds, fragments, if you will. And of course, all of that is given names. So everything in the universe is that one, appearing in various forms. So the whole universe is all one in this divine self. And that we call Brahman. That's the technical term, because we cannot really put it into any description, and yet we have to have some kind of representative word that conveys something. And the root Bra will indicate something that is infinite, something maybe that we can call the infinite invisible. So that self, when it appears behind the universe, is called God. And that same self, when it appears behind this little universe, this body is a universe, a miniature universe. This is called the soul. So now, in order to explain all this, we can use a story, and we can see that there's a story from the Chandogya Upanishad. Prajapati gives instructions to two types of beings, Indra and Virochana, both representatives of different values and qualities. Therefore, they will interpret what he has to say in two different ways. So it's a charming story. I suppose because it's a story, we have to say once upon a time. So there you go. Once upon a time, Prajapati, who is a knower of Brahman, he declares, the Atman, which is free from evil, free from old age, free from death, free from sorrow, free from hunger and thirst, whose desire is of the truth, whose resolve is of the truth, he should be sought, him one should desire to understand. He who has found out and who understands that Atman attains all the worlds and all the desires. Without asking, just understanding, you'll get whatever you want. Without saying, I want better health, without saying, I want better living conditions, or a different car, or whatever it is, without any of that, that Atman fulfills all desires automatically without asking, because it's a totality of abundance. Our society is called Era Vedanta society. Era means abundance. Now, both gods and demons heard this proclamation, and Indra among the Devas, representing king of the gods, and Virochana among the Asuras, a different class of beings. So they're both children of Prajapati, and they both said, yes, we've heard that the Atman has to be known. The Atman that is not touched by sin or old age or death or sorrow or thirst or hunger, the Atman whose desires are always true. There's a character that we know in the Chandogya Upanishad called Satyakama, that is somebody whose desires are always true, whose resolutions are always firm. Please instruct us about this Atman. Now we have just laid out some criteria. Whatever Prajapati says has to conform exactly to this. So we'll have to go back when we hear the description and see, does it conform to what it should be, the stable entity called Atman? So Prajapati, then what does he do? He asks them to practice austerities and celibacy for 32 years. Now, it seems a long time to us, but because they're keen on understanding it, then they oblige and look at the qualifications. There is austerities and celibacy. What does it mean? Austerities means that we reduce our sense of attachment to the external things. And by doing that, we increase the strength of our will. Now, if you do it only to increase the strength of your will, then you will use this potency against, because the wisdom will not be there. So we can see that in the Ramayana and places like this, Ravana is a great meditator. All the great demons, they're great meditators, and they get powers. Where are they getting these powers from? Brahma. Brahma means cosmic mind. Cosmic mind is the dispenser of everything. It is actually God not discriminating. Whatever you want, whatever you think, you get. It's a kind of law. So they have to practice this. In other words, they have to restrain their energy, and they have to restrain their behaviors. They have to do it for 32 years. And then that means a long time. Before you even come to understand anything, this purification process has to take place. And the Purusha, that is the divine self, visible in the eyes, reflected in the water, or in the mirror, that is the Atman, says Prajapati. You just look in the water, in the river, or in the mirror, that's what you see, that is this Atman, this internal self. The inquiry is, what is that? Knowing that we exist is a natural question to ask, what is that thing that is existing? So go and look at yourselves in the water. Let me know what you see. And when they did this, Prajapati asked them, so what did you see? Now, we saw the whole body, both of them say. And Prajapati asked them to dress well and again look at the image. And then they saw the images, also looked well dressed. And he says, well, this is the Atman that you seek. And they went away satisfied. In other words, our first interpretation of who are we are the physical body. We are the thing that looks back at us in the mirror. Sometimes we're happy with it, sometimes not. If you look properly, if you have good eyesight, maybe you won't be so happy. You'll see increasing wrinkles and gray hairs and so on. Aging process. So maybe it has an advantage to be a little short-sighted. I don't know. Depends if you interpret it in this way, and they both did. But you see, we have to inquire further. Virochana, he goes back to the ashuras and he proclaims, see, the body is the Atman. I've solved it. So you can serve this body well, and you'll obtain all your desires here and hereafter also. And so to this day, says the text, people generally say, he's a demon. And when a person has no charitable nature or no faith in the supernatural realms, atheistic by temperament and so on, never worshipping or never performing any purificatory rituals or sacrifices, who's selfish and body-centered, egocentric, it's because they're identified with the body and think that the body is very valuable and cater to its whims, falsely thinking that it is the true self of man. In other words, those who identify themselves with the body and worship it, these are all called ashuras. So there are many people who have this nature, and they should come under this classification. They are the ashuras, children of Virochana. Now, I attended a nice meeting today, designed to see, and there are something like 9 stakeholders, including the European Union, trying to resolve difficulties of anti-Semitism and of Islamophobia and so on and so forth, 3 religions being involved, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and to see if there is a way to promote harmony worldwide. But then you would expect them to be harmonious because they're all religions. I remember looking out, well, never mind looking out in Jerusalem is a place that is holy to all these 3 people. And if you look out at Vishakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh, on a hill you see, in a line, church, mosque, temple. Why would we fight then? So the only reason is because we have interpreted our own existence in a physical way. That is, we are atheists. That's the only thing I can think of. I pointed it out. If you want to resolve this, go to the root. The root essentially is egocentricity expanded to nationality, expanded to land ownership, expanding to cultural differences, expanded to religious difficulties. And religions, of course, are the cornerstone of culture. So let us follow what Indra does. Virochana has made his final conclusion. This is yourself. And as a result of living a right type of austere life, in other words, taking this 32 years in a different way, Indra, he becomes endowed with intelligence, the power of discernment. And that is the first thing that we have to use in spiritual practice is viveka, discernment. So on his way back, he thinks, he contemplates this. If the Atman becomes lame, if the body is lame, and blind if the body is blind, and is well dressed if the body is well dressed, and is destroyed if the body is destroyed, I see no good in this teaching because when we look at the criteria, it doesn't match. Let's look at this criteria again. Criteria is free from evil, free from old age, free from death, free from sorrow, free from hunger and thirst, whose desire is of the truth, whose resolve is of the truth, and so on. It cannot be the body. It doesn't match. So he realizes this. And so he goes back to Prajapati. So he goes back and Prajapati says, yes, okay, but I'll tell you more. But you have to live a life of celibacy, brahmacharya, studentship, self-restraint for another 32 years. So his apprenticeship is 64 years so far. Then he said, he who moves about as the Lord in the state of dream is the self, the Atman. Yes. He who moves about in the state as the Lord in the state of dream is the self, the Atman. Indra again reflected on the way back, because the only thing that we have, if we register the physical body, is in another condition, which is called a waking state. In this waking state, Jagrata it's called, this is where we have the body, sorrows, pains, and so on. And when we go into a dream, without even a passport, we glide across, leaving the physical difficulties behind and engaging in a different kind of thing, different kind of body. If my leg gets cut off, I get gangrene or something, and they say, Swami, there's nothing we can do. Your leg has to, there's your leg, it's in a bucket, it's gone, say goodbye to it. Well, I glide across into a dream and I'm playing football with 2 legs. So what allowed this repair job in the dream? We're told that this is the self, the Atman. Anyway, Indra again reflects on this on the way back, and he thinks to himself, Though this dream, Purusha, is not affected by any damage to the body, yet at times he is being chased or hurt, or that Purusha feels pain or weeps. This certainly cannot be the self. It doesn't match the criteria. Again, he goes back to Prajapati, and after 32 years more of celibacy, Indra was told, see, the self in the state of deep sleep is the Atman. It's immortal, it's fearless, here's Brahman. But again, Indra expresses a doubt. See, the self is not affected by dream or damage to or destruction of the body, but it seems not to know itself and is, as it were, dead in this state of deep sleep. We call it sushupti, deep sleep. I don't see any real good in this because it's dullness, there's nothing happen. I go to sleep as a fool, I wake up as a fool, nothing happened. So he again goes back to Prajapati and is told to practice celibacy for 5 more years. So that means he's lived a spiritual life for a total of 101 years. It means we have to be patient and practice a lot in order to find out this. And all of it is to do with reflection. And what is he doing? He's getting the divine grace increasingly of inner wisdom through reflection. This is a part of meditation. So he goes again and sees that this is not a satisfactory answer. So at last Prajapati has found Indra to be fit to receive the true teaching. Then he instructs him, O Indra, it's true this body is mortal and it's held by death. It doesn't meet the criteria. But it's the support of this deathless, bodiless Atman that supports us. And truly, the embodied self is held by pleasure and pain, yes. Surely there's no cessation of pleasure and pain for one who is embodied. That embodied state cannot be the self. But pleasure and pain don't indeed touch one who has no body. Bodiless is air and white cloud, lightning, thunder. These are also bodiless. Now, as these arise out of the sky above, reach the highest light and appear each with its own form, in this way, just exactly, even so, this serene one rises out of this body, reaches the highest light and appears in his own form. He is the highest person. There he moves about, laughing, playing, rejoicing, and so on, and all of this in the body state, and in the dream state also. Just as an animal is attached to a chariot, even so is the life attached to this body. Now where the sight merges in space, there exists that which is the person in the eyes, and the eye is only for seeing, it's an instrument. And he who knows, I smell this, that's the Atman. The nose is for smelling. It's not the nose that is the Atman, it is the Atman behind it. And he who knows I speak in this way, that's really the Atman. The organ of speech is for speaking. And he who knows I hear this is the Atman, and so it goes on. So in other words, whatever you think and so on and so forth, all of that is the Atman, no doubt, through looking like the instrument, but it's not the instrument. As soon as that distinction is made, then knowledge begins to dawn. And it begins to dawn in the depths of reflection and meditation. And it comes because the grace of divine knowledge, the grace of exposure, the grace of opening moves with every inward step we make. It reveals itself more and more, opens itself more and more, just like the fragrance in a flower is inside the flower, and as it opens, more fragrance comes. So satisfying relationships, abundant supply, successful business activity or creative endeavor, they're the tangible effects of what we call grace. First must come the inner grace before the things of this world can be added to us. But we can never receive the grace of God so long as we seek it for the purpose of demonstration. That is, seeking God in order to possess some person or something, or to achieve some place. So, meditation no longer becomes meditation when the purpose of it is obscured. Firstly, by a sense of I, first person singular. We have to let go of that. Second, future tense. I want this, I want that. As long as we have these things, it is no longer meditation. So this is the reason meditation can never be used to demonstrate, the car, money, wealth, better position. It's for the purpose of realizing the inner divinity, what we call God. And in meditation, that God is revealed as the life of individual being. God is the embodiment of all that is good. In achieving the experience of God, even the language is awkward, our good appears as whatever the need may be. Without asking, it comes to us. We fail if we attempt to gain anything separate and apart from this God. God itself is the good. Prayer or meditation. So here Joel Goldsmith is equating the two. But it's not a request, a requisition. It's not thinking that God is a storehouse. Not at all. It's actually approaching that being in spirit, not in materiality. We fail if we attempt to gain anything separate and apart from God. God itself is the good. Prayer or meditation for material things and persons cannot be answered by a God. Not a God of spirit, anyway. Such an object defeats the purpose of meditation. So he goes on, to be effective, prayer must be addressed to a God of spirit, he repeats, and therefore that for which we pray must be of a spiritual nature. Let us remember this every time we turn to this inner being, this infinite invisible, in meditation. Let us measure the quality of our prayer by the degree of spiritual illumination we are seeking, and from that we shall know whether or not we may expect fulfillment. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. So it's not really we who pray or meditate. There will be a misunderstanding. The Spirit is meditating inside us, and we simply open our consciousness to let the Spirit flow, this pure spiritual grace flow, reveal itself and reveal our need and its fulfillment. Because we may say, I need this, but that Spirit is full of wisdom. We are not so wise. There's a story about somebody who looked in the mirror and thought, I wonder why my nose is on the front. I think it would look much better on the back. Well, no amount of praying or intention, only surgical operation, given by a plastic surgeon who thinks this man is mad. Of course, the nose doesn't operate if it's stitched on the back of your head. And it just doesn't look, it won't look as good. So there are some things which we feel we need, but our inner wisdom tells us, no, it's a higher kind of wisdom. And there's a secret in this, therefore. How different that is from doing mental work. We're not sitting, trying, struggling. That defeats the purpose of our meditation. We're not declaring, we're not affirming that this or that shall come to pass now, this minute, or in the future. Rather, we are going into meditation, or a meditation attitude, with the idea that we are humble, we are recipients. We are asking only one thing: please speak. Speak to me, and I will hear you. That's the true attitude with which to enter into meditation. Opening our consciousness to that divine and letting the divine fulfill itself within us. Let God utter its word within our being, not our words, but the word. And when we say the word, we're really referring to cosmic mind. Cosmic mind is this God, this creative entity, and from this comes everything else. In order to understand that, we have to understand the structure given to us in the Sankhya philosophy, which tells us that there are various categories of beings, but they all, in fragmented and distributed form, they are all waves coming from a cosmic mind. Now, if you're a Christian, you might say it's Christ consciousness. Not so long ago, when was it? The other day, Sunday actually, I went to a Bhagavad Gita workshop because tomorrow, of course, is Gita Jayanti, celebrating the Gita. That's tomorrow. And so this was a Sunday organized for children, reciting Bhagavad Gita and various things, doing dramas and so on. And it was operated by Krishna consciousness people. So if you are a worshipper of Krishna, that cosmic mind is called cosmic Krishna, Krishna consciousness. If you're a Christian, Christ consciousness. If you're a Buddhist, you say Buddha consciousness. So we shall find that this word, this cosmic consciousness, to be quick and sharp and powerful. It doesn't return unto us void. It does the work whereunto it is sent. But it must be the word of the divine, not our word. We cannot insert our whims into it. Not your desire, not my desire. The true aspirant on the spiritual path has no desire other than the fulfillment of God, the realization of God. This term realization is very subtle, because you're not looking for something that suddenly appears. It is already there. We just didn't realize it. Sometimes people walk along with glasses on the top of their head and ask everybody under the sun, where are my glasses? Has anybody seen them? No, they're on your head. Oh, yes, I realize they are. Realization is realization of an already present fact. So this realization of God, the experience of the Christ, if you like, if you're a Christian, Joe Goldsmith is writing in Christian language, how could there possibly be an unfulfilled need if that being is operating in our consciousness? The Christ must fulfill itself. One desire alone is legitimate, and that is the realization only of this activity of the Christ in our consciousness. And all these great mystics will say precisely the same thing. It's not we that are doing things. It is this divine grace flowing through the instrumentality of body and mind that is doing everything. If only this pain could be stopped, then I really could begin to search for God or meditate. If only my knee was healed, I can sit down and meditate. See, none of these are valid. None of them. And often we see people postponing things like meditation because when I'm in a condition, I can do it. When my children grow up, I can do it. When the things are quiet in the house, I can do it. I can do it next year. Maybe when I retire, I can do it. No, it's too late. That being is right here, right now, and has to be accessed now, is available to be accessed now. But it requires repeated practice like anything. It requires work. And work not in the sense of an uphill struggle, but the cultivation of a let-go attitude, the cultivation of feeling the instrumentality of the body and mind. So, in other words, people who are inserting these delaying factors they are not able to search for God, not ever. There'll always be some excuse. They're implying that the realization of God is dependent upon some physical constraint or physical need or financial condition, and it's not. And evidence to the contrary is the fact that there are people with millions of dollars or euros or whatever it is, and they're not that happy. No matter how much money, they're not that happy. Some of them discover this, and some of them, they've become social activists and contributors, putting their money into social plans, social upliftments, and so on, programs, and so on. So these people are doing good work with their money, but if you ask them, will you let the whole thing go? What will they answer? Because you see, when letting the whole thing go will automatically refill you with abundance, since you are letting go and surrendering to a totality, to a source of life and abundance. And this is an art that many people are just unaware of. It is by letting go that you receive. I often use the example. If I'm putting a little something in my fist, let's say a pen, then and holding it preciously, and you can see that represents not only possessions, but represents my own ego. Well, I cannot receive, let us say, let's put it in material terms, I cannot see the benefit, receive the benefit of abundance that will fill my hand. So by holding things, I'm actually thwarting the abundance that I'm seeking. It's a natural law. So we can reverse the picture. Let us begin the search for this infinite, invisible, this immortal self, what this Lord of all creatures, Prajapati, was saying, this internal self, this Atman, this Purusha, same different concepts, but they're basically the internal self that doesn't shift, doesn't move, doesn't change, doesn't get affected by the weather, the vacillations of life, by pleasure, by pain, by any pair of opposites. So, when we search for that, and in finding this, we see the pain disappear. We watch the lack, the limitation, and the sin. All of that vanishes. And as long as we are merely trying to exchange physical discord for physical harmony, or we have no conception of what this kingdom of this divine is, of spiritual riches or of spiritual health. So we must begin our meditation with the recognition that neither health nor wealth is the object of our search for God. Any desire for things or persons will prevent, and prevention will be delaying our entrance into the spiritual realm. But the steadfast remembrance that the goal we are seeking of this divine realization will open the way and make our highway for our divine. If that realization, or in that realization, we find all things added unto us, or be more accurate, we find all things included within us. So what is this grace? Unasked, things flow to us. Imagine now, if we tap into that source, how much more we get. And it comes to us as the tangible effects of grace that materialists will be seeking in the first place. We have to make a kind of prayer like this. One thing have I desired, that I might know thee. One thing my heart cries out. And the Lord, open yourself to me, reveal yourself to me. I care not whether you reveal yourself in wealth or in health, in poverty or in sickness. Only reveal thyself. In thy presence is security, safety, peace, and joy. How do we become sons of God? I'm jumping here to other passages here in Joel Goldsmith's wonderful book and his chapter on the purpose. He says, how do we become sons of God? How do we awaken the Christ or the Son of God, which always has been, is, and always will be our true identity, even though it has been hidden from sight during the period of mortality in which we are sleeping? To do this requires effort. We must abandon all our previous concepts of life for my name's sake. We must get up from the bouquet, or the banquet, I should say, with the swine, and leave behind all thoughts, people, and activities of the swinish world, and return, and he's using Christian language, to the Father. And you see, so every person, every mystic will really be saying the same thing, that we have to embark on an attitude which says, the world, our familiar world, which we are so attached to, starting off with the body itself, the physical, the corporeal, and then going on to our behavioral self, and interpreting life, in other words, like Virochana was interpreting it. We have to learn to reframe that. We have to learn to see the flow of grace is already there, and we can simply let go and be carried. It doesn't mean to say we are lazy and do nothing. What it means is that all our activity will be directed toward that one purpose, that purpose of divine revelation that solves all problems. And as soon as we learn that, as soon as we get into that habitual groove, as it were, then we realize the benefits and merits of it. But don't fall into the trap that that's why you're doing it. That will be counterproductive. We have to have the insight that Indra ultimately had through his reflections. And the rewards came with Prajapati telling him, oh, this is the knowledge. What was the effect of it? His whole demeanor changed. And instead of being something like a recipient or somebody desiring to be filled, he becomes somebody who fills. The characteristic of somebody who knows this is one of a beaming variety, uplifting everybody. Very presence will transform everybody around that person. There are so many examples of people like this, with shining faces, making everybody else shine, making eyes shine, making mouths smile. Just by their presence, by their blissful presence, they do it. And so the ultimate thing is not my own salvation. No, that's not the purpose of meditation. The purpose of meditation is to open and access, as Joel Goldsmith says in the beginning, to access this divine grace. He elaborates a little bit, if my memory serves me correctly. He says, let no one take credit for being on the spiritual path. We're all on the spiritual path. There's nothing special about it. We shouldn't take credit for it. Were it not for the grace of the divine, one would not be reaching out toward the realization of your divine relationship. Then he says, any meditation that has within itself a single trace of a desire to get something from God or to acquire something through God is no longer meditation. This is a theme he keeps repeating. Good is to be realized, yes, but not to be achieved. Then he goes on, once we have gotten this contact with our inner being, we are free. This is his final word. We are in bondage to no one. We are in bondage to no circumstance, no condition. We are free in that divinity. And we can then say that that divinity lives in me. What difference does it make whether or not there are periods of depression or periods of prosperity or floods or droughts, we may add, or wars or peace? That being lives in my life. It leads me beside the still waters. It makes me to lie down in green pastures, quoting Psalms. 1,000 may fall at my left hand and 10,000 at my right. Still it will not come near me. I have made that contact. I am dying daily to my humanhood. I am being reborn of the Spirit. I am being guided, directed, fed, maintained, sustained, healed, and saved by this inner light, this inner illumination. The secret is the awakening of the sleeping Atman, and this is the purpose of meditation. Well, we may have room for a few questions.
Swamiji,
Yes.
how can you explain meditation without God? If you don't believe in God, how can you realize God?
So the key to meditation as a pathway is that if you don't believe in God, it's still valid. Because at least you believe that there is an existent self. When you say God and put that God externally, then you're bringing it down to a kindergarten level, and we have to get over that. You see how people are brought up in all religions to understand that God is an entity outside a circle of experience. Let's call it me. The circle is me, and outside I put a God. And I think of that God occasionally and bring him in when I have a problem. Otherwise, I leave him on the outskirts. When I'm desperate, I bring him into the circle. So as that develops, as we get over that child state of understanding, we then bring God inside. And then that becomes much more meaningful. And then that God is seen inside everything. So we begin with God is outside. Then we say that being is inside. Now you see, if you do away with the God, it doesn't make any difference, because inside you is still something which exists. So the Sankhya's, they don't have a God. The yoga philosophy has a kind of a God, but it's not important. The importance is to discover this Purusha, this internal self. And you don't have to call it God. But when you discover it, then you see it is infinite. You cannot have 8 billion infinities. It is infinite. It is pure consciousness. It is pure existence itself. It is all the attributes that the Vedanta gives it. That is Sat Chit Ananda, existence and consciousness and bliss itself, or infinity. So you can meditate, and you don't have to have theistic meditation, or you could have theistic meditation that is focused, as it were, on a personalized aspect revealed to you of this infinite invisible which is there. You see, in Buddhist meditation, they don't really have a God in that. In impersonal meditation and Advaitic meditation, there's no being like that. But always there's a concept. We have to start with a concept. Even if it's the concept of an eternal, unending horizon, something like a horizon over the borders of a sea, or the sky or space. So something, and this is called external meditation, taking a kind of object that represents the infinite, or you could bring that inside and meditate on it inside. And whichever way you approach it, it leads to the same thing. With or without God, it leads to the same thing. So Raja Yoga, that path of dhyana meditation, is the one factor applicable to everyone, regardless of whether you're theist or atheist or what. Now, in this day and age, of course, love of God would be much easier. So says our mystic Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna says, 2 types of people are there. He's answering a question, and the question is, what is the Vedanta? And he answers. So he's taking it as Advaita, non-dualism. He says, it says that there's only one existence. Brahman is the only existence. There's nothing else. Not even do I exist. Nothing exists. Only Brahman exists. Only that oneness. But for the vast majority of people who cannot grasp that, in other words, in Krishna's language, in the Gita, for those who feel embodied, then at least we say, okay, I accept this I thing, I can accept, but let me re-register, reframe it, and make it God's servant, God's lover, God's child, whatever it is, and form a relationship like that, and both styles will arrive at the same conclusion. The jnana yogi will become a bhakta, and the bhakti yogi will discover this immortal knowledge. Well, we can leave it at that then.
Thank you. But for me, is because Vedanta is not religious, so how do we need to say so many times this is God, meditation is to realize God? So it seems there are like this necessity to talk about God to define meditation.
No, not necessarily, but
Okay.
you have to understand we're using different language for the same thing. What we call Brahman, we can call God. What we call God is Brahman.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference. And
Okay,
for those who are carrying baggage with the word God, they don't have to use that word. These are just linguistics. Words and concepts go together, inevitably go together. If you don't like the word God, you replace it with something else. Joel Goldsmith's preference is, and I like it, and I use it also, is infinite, invisible. But if that doesn't suit you, you use some other term. It's only to get some kind of concept. You cannot deal with something where there's no concept. Until you then manage to transcend the concept, when you actually make that actual connection, then the concept is irrelevant. Concept goes away. Beyond thought, words come back together with the mind, say the Upanishads. All right. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thanks.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Swamiji.